The telephone shattered the silence at exactly 3 a.m. Linda Lee reached for it on the fourth ring, half awake, disoriented. The voice on the other end was calm, clinical, a doctor calling from Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Hong Kong. Bruce had been there for filming. Linda was in Los Angeles with the children. He had phoned just a day earlier, mentioning a headache. Nothing alarming, just something he said he'd get checked if it lingered. That was yesterday. Now a hospital was calling in the dead of night. Mrs. Lee, I'm very sorry. Your husband passed away this evening. The words landed, but didn't settle. We did everything we could. The swelling was severe, brain edema. He collapsed at a friend's apartment. There was nothing more we could do. Nothing more. It didn't make sense. Bruce was 32, disciplined, unbreakable, it seemed. A man sculpted from willpower and precision. Men like that didn't just vanish. The call ended. Or maybe it didn't. The moment fractured. Memory blurred. At some point, Brandon appeared in the doorway. 7 years old. Frightened. Drawn by a sound no child should ever hear from a parent. Mom? What's wrong? No answer came. How do you explain absence to a child who still expects footsteps in the hallway? By sunrise, the world knew. Headlines screamed the impossible. Phones rang without mercy. Friends, reporters, industry figures, everyone searching for clarity in something that offered none. July 20th, 1973. The funeral was set for July 25th in Seattle. Lakeview Cemetery, a quiet place overlooking the water. Bruce had chosen it himself. The days in between dissolved into logistics. Decisions made through a haze. Casket, flowers, travel, arrangements of grief. Linda moved through it all, functioning, but distant, as if watching her own life from across a room. Shannon was 4, too young to grasp it. Brandon understood just enough to ask questions that had no real answers. Why did Daddy die? I don't know. Is he in heaven? I think so. Will we see him again? Someday. The guest list became its own quiet burden. Bruce had known people across worlds. Film, martial arts, athletics, culture. But this wasn't about status. It was about closeness. A small circle was chosen. People who mattered beyond the spotlight. Some names were inevitable. Others were deeply personal. One name stood out. She added it herself.
He had spoken about that man often, with respect, with curiosity, with something close to admiration. An invitation was sent. No certainty it would be accepted, only certainty that it should be. The message reached him in the middle of training. Camp was intense, focused. A rematch loomed. He read it. Silence followed. A rare, heavy silence. Bruce is gone. The words felt wrong even as they were spoken aloud. He made a decision quickly. Final. I'm going. Objections came. Training schedules, commitments, timing. None of it mattered. Bruce was my friend, a real one. That ended the discussion. July 25th arrived under a gray sky. Seattle felt colder than it should have. A thin drizzle traced the air. The cemetery stretched across quiet hills, overlooking distant water. Peaceful, almost detached from the world beyond. People arrived slowly, one by one. Black clothing, quiet footsteps, soft voices. The casket rested simply. Dark wood, no excess, no spectacle. Inside, He wore something familiar, something chosen with care, something that represented him as he truly was. Words were spoken, measured, respectful, memories shared, some philosophical, some deeply personal. Then, movement at the edge of the gathering, a late arrival, a tall figure moving quickly, but without urgency. He had traveled through the night, straight from training. No delay, no hesitation. He didn't step forward, didn't command attention. He didn't need to. He simply stood there, present. Linda approached. "Thank you for coming. I wouldn't miss it." When the moment came for additional words, silence lingered. Then he stepped forward. No theatrics, no performance. Just a man. His hand rested on the casket. His voice, quieter than anyone expected. I didn't know him long, but I knew enough. He spoke of learning, of exchange, of mutual respect, of growth. He spoke of a call they had shared, of excitement about the future, a future that would now unfold without him. That thought broke something in the room. Emotion spread quietly, then openly. Anger surfaced too. Honest, unfiltered. Some things aren't fair. The words hung there, undeniable. Then gratitude followed. Gratitude for the time that did exist, for the connection, for the lessons. His voice faltered once, just once.
But it was enough. He lowered his head, shoulders moved, not dramatically, not for effect, just real grief. When he spoke again, it was softer, a farewell, personal, direct. A promise was made, not loudly, not for applause, but with certainty. And then he stepped back. The ceremony continued. Slowly, earth met wood, one handful at a time. When the crowd thinned, he approached alone. He crouched, picked up soil, held it for a moment longer than necessary, then let it fall. Rest easy. Simple. Final. People left gradually, no one eager to go. He returned once more before leaving. An offer. Sincere. If you ever need anything. No conditions, no distance. Then he was gone. The flight back was quiet. Thoughts circled. Questions surfaced. Life. Time. Legacy. What remains when everything else is stripped away? A realization formed somewhere above the clouds. It wasn't about titles or victories. It was about impact, about what endures. That day reshaped something fundamental, not outwardly, not immediately, but permanently. Years passed. The promise held, not occasionally, not symbolically, consistently, quietly, through check-ins, through support, through presence when it mattered. Time tested it. It never broke. Decades later, when roles reversed and another farewell came, the memory remained intact. A promise kept. A bond that outlived both men. Because beneath everything else, fame, reputation, legend, there had been something simpler. Respect. And the rare discipline of showing up when it truly counted. Time moved forward. It always does. But some moments refuse to fade. They settle deep. They echo. Quietly. Persistently. That day in Seattle became one of those moments. Not because of the crowd. Not because of the names. But because of what was revealed beneath all of it. Grief. Stripped of spectacle. Friendship. Proven without words. And a promise. Carried across decades without ever being announced again. In the years that followed, life unfolded the way it always does. Unpredictable. Uneven. Sometimes cruel. The children grew.
Questions turned into memories. Memories into identity. Stories were told. Not loudly. Not publicly. But at the right moments. About discipline. About philosophy. About a man who refused to be confined by expectation. And about another man who showed up when it mattered most. The connection didn't dissolve with time. It matured. Quietly. Steadily. There were calls. Occasional meetings. Words exchanged that never reached headlines. Guidance offered when it was needed. Presence given without condition. No obligation.
Choice. Years later, when one legacy began to take shape through a new generation, that connection resurfaced in a different way. A familiar voice. A familiar reassurance. You're not alone. Simple words. But they carried weight. History. Meaning. Because they came from someone who understood what it meant to live under expectation, to carry a name that already meant something before you had the chance to define it yourself. That kind of understanding isn't taught. It's lived. And then, another loss. Sudden. Unforgiving. The kind that reopens old wounds. The kind that reminds you how fragile everything really is. That even then, the thread held. Because what had been built wasn't fragile. It was intentional. It had been forged in a moment where nothing was required, yet everything was given. Decades passed. The world changed. New champions rose. New stories took center stage. But this one never disappeared. It lingered, passed from one generation to the next, not as myth, not as exaggeration, but as something quietly powerful. A reminder that greatness isn't measured only in victories, not in titles, not in records, but in the moments when no one is keeping score, when there are no cameras, no applause, just a choice to show up, to stand still, to speak honestly, and then to follow through. For years, for decades, until the promise is no longer a promise, but a legacy of its own. And maybe that's why the story still resonates, why it still moves people, because it reveals something rare, that even among legends, even among giants, what endures the longest isn't the noise they created, but the quiet, unwavering loyalty they carried when it mattered most.